Where do you stand on defund the police?
We need to take a look at these budgets.
For far too long,
The status quo thinking has been
the idea that more police equals more safety, and that's just wrong.
well, that's wrong.
And that's just wrong.
Will everyone have to drive electric cars?
Zero emission vehicles. Only 100%.
I support our sanctuary law.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
How dare we speak Merry Christmas? How dare we?
Are undocumented immigrants that are the least likely to commit a crime.
People who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber, on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be able to vote?
I think we should have that conversation.
So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on. It has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place.
Everyone should end up in the same place.
I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. I made sure that they changed the policy so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care.
What issues do you break from her on?
I'm not going to try to itemize issues that we might not have total agreement on.
What is the solution for voters in the fossil fuel industry?
Giving the workers an ability to transition.
Coal miners.
Yes.
Oil field workers.
Yep.
Auto workers. Farmers.
Let's transition those folks.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. It's critically important on day one that we end any fossil fuel leases on public lands.
Including our farmers in what we do to transition.
Would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
The food pyramid. What people
Yes.
are
Yes.
to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes.
Abolish ICE.
Yeah.
Is that a position you agree with?
And we need to probably think about starting from scratch. As Attorney General, informed California law enforcement that ICE detainers are not mandatory. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented and cross the border as criminals. That's correct.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross a border.
An undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. Your immigrant status, whatever it is, does not, in our mind's eye, designate you as a criminal.
I am not for a wall. We don't need to build a wall. By definition, just plain speak, basic English language definition, it is not an emergency.
Deal with the problem. We have 11 million people here who need a pathway to citizenship.
You support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny any human being public health, period.
Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported?
No, absolutely not. They should not be deported.
Down with deportation! Up with education! Down with deportation!
See no.
Are you aware that there's a
that
perception?
puts ICE in the same category as the KKK. Is that what you're asking me?
Would you be committing to close immigration detention centers?
Absolutely, on day one.
Every single carbon emission in the country, every car, should be eliminated within the next 11 years. Everything from a 70 to 80% tax rate.
I think that's fantastic.
What issues do you break from her on?
I'm not going to try to itemize issues that we might not have total agreement on.
Are you open to expanding the size of the Supreme Court?
I am open to that discussion.
Do you think that sex work ought to be decriminalized?
I think so. When you're talking about consenting adults, I think that, yes, we should really consider that we can't criminalize consensual behavior.
You must have the courage to object when they use that term. Radical Islamic terrorism. Also have the courage to reject that term illegal alien.
Do you believe that Americans should have the right to vote at age 16?
I'm really interested in having that conversation.
Should black people get reparations?
I think there has to be some form of reparations, and we can discuss what that is.
So you are for some type of
Yes, I am.
reparation? Okay.
Yes, I am.
She thinks we should do away with the Electoral College. Is that? Do you agree with that?
I think that I'm open to the discussion.
I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it.
If you act as a megaphone for misinformation, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable.
They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
I am committed to drastically reducing our prison population.
I've been a leader in the United States Senate on what we need to do to get rid of the cash bail system in America.
Eliminate cash bail. I've been a leader on that in the United States Senate.
Progressive prosecutors who can show it is a very effective way, among other ways, to achieve public safety.
Policing, as we know, goes all the way back to slave patrols.
You are absolutely right. Again, what we need to do about demilitarizing our schools. And taking police officers out of schools. And there I was, a woman of color who was personally opposed to the death penalty. Just because you legally possess a gun in the sanctity of your locked home doesn't mean that we're not going to walk into that home and check to see if you're being responsible. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program.
Would you support efforts on a federal level to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and why does that matter so much?
Sure. Those explorers ushered in a wave of devastation for tribal nations, perpetrating violence, stealing land, and spreading disease.
We have to stay woke. Like, everybody needs to be woke.
What issues do you break from her on?
I'm not going to try to itemize issues that we might not have total agreement on.